We constantly hear the argument about how the United States is constantly subsidizing Canada, and that's the argument to make it the 51st state, according to President Donald Trump, who has stated this multiple times throughout the mainstream media and has been echoed into our country. But it may not exactly be the case. As I stated, the numbers that he keeps referring to, the $200 billion, seems more like an exaggeration, not really a calculated argument on his behalf. But here's just to remind people of what he keeps bouting to the mainstream media about this.
Are you planning to increase the tariffs against Canada?
Well, it could happen. If they do anything, we will. Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S.
That's pretty amazing. They don't allow our banks to go in. I love how that's now an argument. Oh, they don't allow our corrupted banks to interfere with their corrupted banks. Because, yeah, that's what we need more of in Canada. Instead of being, screwed over by RBC, CIBC, Scotiabank, the Bank of Montreal, all those already infuriating large banks here in Canada that we're trying to deal with just within this nation. No, we need to get screwed over by the Bank of America. That's what'll make things better. Or Citigroup or any of these other large transnational banking institutions that pretty much operate in the same ecos anyway. Oh, it's amazing. That's the argument. Again, it's not really about the Canadian population or securing their necessities or needs or cost of living. It's more, hey, how can we put our dent into the Canadian front? How can we further indent ourselves into the Canadian bound? Which, by the way, America's already done that. A lot of our Canadian institutions, like Tim Hortons, not even Canadian anymore because American international corporations have bought out a lot of these entities. We really don't have much in Canada at this point.
Bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want. Mexico, we've had very good talks with them. And this is retaliatory. This is retaliatory to a certain extent. Millions of people flowed into our country through Mexico and Canada. And we're not going to allow that.
So I don't know where he's getting these numbers from. There's no real calculation. There's no, example or specific argument that he could back that on. But he's just saying, $200 billion is being wasted because he keeps subsidizing. It's a one-way street, this trade war. Well, if that's the case, then we need to renegotiate the USMCA. That could resolve a lot of this instead of this WWE absurdity trade war smackdown that's just making a mockery of all this. So, the reason I bring this up is because the U.S. Census, kind of disagrees with that statement. So it says the U.S. trade deficit with Canada was $54.999 billion in 2024, according to the Census Bureau. This deficit is primarily driven by essentials oil gas imports. Without energy trade, the U.S. would have a trade surplus. Trump's claim of a $250 billion deficit is false and exaggerated. So that's from the U.S. Census, saying that he's purposely bloating the numbers to back his ridiculous argument of saying that we need to just go into Canada and buy it out. And by buy, it means just take over. Look, trust me, they're not interested in buying. They're just willing to invade and storm in. But he's doing that purposely to undermine and propagandize people and lie specifically to your face to think that Canadians are the abusive one, that we're the ones abusing or abusing Americans, and we're doing this willfully, and that's why America needs to go in and teach them a lesson. But that's an exaggerated number because the U.S. Census Bureau is saying that it's only 54, not 200, 54. That's a lot less of a number. It's still a lot, but it's a lot less than what he claims. So the tie or the T, some say T, some say tie, reports Trump is wrong. The U.S. does not subsidize Canada. In fact, it's the other way around. These numbers show a tariff war makes no sense, according to this this report here. And this is a guy from the name of Jim Stanford, who's an economist and director for the Center for Future Work in Vancouver. So he writes, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has pledged to impose immediate across-the-board 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, even higher tariffs on China, and tariffs on all other countries as well. He says they will start with executive orders on Monday, his inauguration day. That was what's supposed to happen, but luckily with Daniel Smith intervening and negotiating with them, that extended to February 1st. And now we got a 30-day extension because we at least recognized our border crisis. Not well, but at least we recognized it. And now we need to do more to actually retaliate against the possibility of escalating this trade war. Initially, these threats were interpreted as a strategy to exert leverage over other countries on a range of trade and non-trade matters, from border issues to defense spending to taxes and regulations on U.S.-based tech giants. That may come by wishful thinking because Trump's rhetoric has now turned more ominous. Reports suggest he may invoke a national economic emergency to activate special presidential powers, and he has spoken of using economic force to effectively annex Canada as part of a broader strategy of territorial expansion. Trump claims that the bilateral U.S. deficit in merchandise trade with Canada amounts to the United States subsidizing Canada. This claim has no economic merit whatsoever. Trump literally makes up numbers and ignores fundamental prospects of economic theory. In reality, the United States benefits from the bilateral relationship and at least as much as Canada does. Here are 9 reality checks. So I'm not going to go through all of it because it's a long list, but Canada is the largest market in the world for U.S. exports. We purchased $440 billion of U.S.-made goods and services in 2023. Number 2, the Canadian-U.S. trade relationship is among the most balanced of all U.S. major trading partners. The United States sells 92 cents of exports to Canada for every dollar imports from Canada, compared with less than 80 cents in its overall trade globally. 3, the bilateral deficit with Canada ranks 10th among U.S. trading partners. 4, Trump's claimed the bilateral deficit is $200 billion is an utter fabrication. Well, we just showed you with the U.S. Census that the number is actually a lot lower. It's still pretty bad, but it's a lot lower than what he claims. And we know that Trump tends to exaggerate numbers to back his ridiculous claims, to back his arguments. Tends to embellish himself, just like he does with the amount of ratings or the amount of people that attend certain rallies. Oh, it's such a huge event. Number 5, compared with the two-way trade flow of almost $1 trillion per year, this imbalance is punny. Number 6, the United States enjoys a strong surplus in service trades with Canada. So, the United States tends to take advantage of Canada. That's kind of what you kind of do in a trade partnership. A country aligns itself with another country and they take advantages and disadvantages of each other. Oh, you have this resource? Well, we'll exchange it for this resource. And this resource, you exchange it for this resource. That's kind of what you do in a partnership. Number 7, the United States also enjoys a net surplus on investment income flowing out of Canada, $13 billion Canadian in 2023. Most Canadian exports to the United States are unfinished inputs that U.S. businesses use in their own production. So when Donald Trump mentions about building cars, for example, yes, you can build cars in Detroit, you can build cars in a lot of different cities, but a lot of the metals, a lot of the parts that are being built to make those cars are also assembled in Canada. And then they import those parts to America and vice versa. That's how it generally works. Is that sometimes certain places build the parts and then they send to another place to finish the rest of it. Number 9, Canadian energy, including oil, gas, and coal and electricity, make up 60% of the total bilateral merchandise trade deficit over the last decade. Having access to a secure and lower cost energy source is a major benefit for U.S. businesses and consumers. So, our resources from Alberta that deliver through like the Keystone Pipeline and other pipelines that go into U.S. Refineries, they use Alberta crude oil. They have to use it because Alberta crude oil is essential for these refineries to operate and then turn that into gasoline, to usable oil, to natural energy. So it seems like the United States actually takes a huge advantage of Canada, not the other way around. It seems like the United States plays a huge factor into this because Canada is a vastly well-resourced nation. We have oil, we have forestry, we have aluminum, we have steel, we have minerals. And yes, there may be some disadvantages. Yes, there may be some back and forth that needs to be renegotiated. But again, that doesn't require a trade war. You can easily sit down and renegotiate the USMCA trade agreement if it seems unfair or not balanced enough. But what Donald Trump is doing is causing a ruckus, and Canada's not really responding enough to actually do something about it, but instead intensifying this, and it's making just an absurdity of all of this. It's turning into a mockery of this long-standing trade partnership that we've had for eons. And it's affecting all major industries. It's affecting all sorts of people with both countries. And we're getting thrown under the bus. We don't get a say in this. We don't get a say in any of this, in the absurdity that our hypocritical, lackluster leadership spews on television and waves their fists back and forth at each other and don't really do anything to serve the needs and notions of their citizens whatsoever. So, there you go. Turns out Donald Trump isn't exactly 100% correct on the notion when it comes to the abuse of Canada. He may be right on the fentanyl and maybe right of the border situation, mostly because Canadians have been saying this for a long time. Majority of the Canadian population want better border protection. They know that the migration crisis is out of control. It's chaotic. It's lackluster. They know that the border security agents have been neglected for such a periodic time. We know that this is used as a means to benefit the billionaire class. They're pouring in these people to take over jobs, to exploit them for temporary foreign worker programs, to exploit them for cheap labor. We know that's a factor into this, and we know that causing all this crime, causing all this drug epidemics to explode into our streets is adding more chaos to Canadians, that we keep getting distracted from going after the government, or going after the powerful and corrupted that are allowing this to happen. And now they're trying to wave their fist and shake their fingers at the fact that, oh, we're gonna come up with a solution to this, a solution to the problem that they have caused. So they may be right about the border situation, and may be right about fentanyl. But when it comes to having a full-out trade war, WWE's ridiculous trade war, making a mockery of this, it's just all hyperbole. It's all for show. It's all theatrical. And it's abusing the situation that's going to hurt us regular working class Canadians and Americans in the process. The people that don't get a say in this. Well, our supposed leadership, our supposed people in charge of dealing with this crisis, are making a complete charade and making themselves look like idiots in result to trying to solve this problem. Just an absolute disregard of the severity of all this. This is brought to you by Ground News, the versatile news app and website that gathers all the world's media on one place and allows users to compare coverage. Ground News gives you the access of thousands of sources worldwide, allows you to see the media blind spots, and even gives analysis on the bias and factuality of those stories. Weave your way through the mainstream narratives, the corporate lies, and have total access to find complete information that you deserve. Click on the link below and get 15% off a subscription. Be critical, be informed, be ground.